3 weeks and counting. We talk Florida State football with all of you on the countdown to LSU in Orlando. Florida State Seminoles live, number 224. We've got Georgitis, Renegade Report right next to me, and introducing new to the show here. I believe his name is Jason Parker, NBC6. He looks vaguely familiar.
I was going to get a name tag that said, hello, my name is Jason, but I forgot to stop at CVS on the way to work today, so.
We'll see if we can find whether we've got a banner for you.
You should. I mean, I was only on the show for 200 weeks, but I'm just saying,
we got Noel moving up in all kind of places around the country,
wow.
Wow. It's nice having you down there to have our back.
I'm just saying, I run this market now. I don't want to say not all heroes wear capes. Some of them wear black Nikes, but it's a job. It's a job I have to do.
Well, Jason, before we get started on Florida State football talk, how is the gig going and your reshaping of the NBC6 sports department?
I mean, literally, since I started doing this, let's just say we just had a few things go on down here between Miami and FAU making the Final Four, the Heat and the Panthers making the playoff, the finals in each of their rounds. All of a sudden, there's this soccer guy. You may have heard of him, Lionel Messi. He's kind of good. He's revamping the team. We got the Dolphins starting this week. So, no, nothing's really going on down here. Nothing at all. Just a few VOs once in a while, and we're good to go.
Is this just a solo one-time guest appearance, or can we expect you to make future appearances?
In the words of the immortal Tony Montana, you never get high on your own supply, but I'm giving you a little taste. I'll give you a little taste of something right here, and then it'll show. Maybe you get hooked. Who knows?
Well, I'll tell you right now, if you're excited after a game or something, you're more than welcome to join the post-game show.
We had the one post-game show where our lives were threatened. Logan was drunk on one of the post-game shows after we lost to Miami 52-10, and I may have aggravated the entire Miami fan base by calling them every name in the book, but it's fine. So maybe, who knows? We'll see what happens.
That's what it's supposed to be. They wear that orange stuff. I'm not into that.
As we should. And then we got another guest coming on here. Look at this.
Absolutely, we do. Well,
the famous Chris Frazier.
This guy is no longer a guest in any such way. He's a pillar of the show, Jason. You need to keep up with us here.
I'm sorry. I've been busy. The Heat. Blame the Heat. Blame the Panthers. I'm sorry. Jeez.
Chris Frazier, Spear Addicts. Chris, appreciate you being here, of course.
Yes, sir. How are y'all doing today?
We are doing just fine. And before we get into all this realignment talk, of course, we want to hit everything that's related to on the field. All right, George. You were going to tee us up on the decision concerning one Darrell Jackson. It's not good.
Yeah. Unfortunately, his waiver didn't go through like we were talking about before the show. It's really unfortunate. The kid decided he wanted to transfer, come up to get closer to his home in Tallahassee, applies for a hardship waiver, ends up settling on Florida State, and, well after a month after he puts his name in and decides he's going to transfer, the NCAA has a meeting. I believe they had a representative from I believe all the conferences, at least one person from each conference there, and they decided to tighten these rules and completely change the hardship waiver for second-time transfers. And he just got it back. I believe they got it back either late Friday or first thing Monday morning, but they finally shared it with the media Monday morning that he did not get it, unfortunately.
George, quick question. I mean, obviously, he had 3 sacks last year for Miami, started in 11 games for the Canes last year. I guess my question would be, did they interview – because obviously he did the one-time waiver from Maryland to Miami. Did they interview Miami at all? And I guess, I'm not trying to start speculation here, but did Miami at all maybe interfere in this decision by the NCAA?
Yeah, that's a real good question. When all this was going down, there was a lot of questions around that, and I had heard – that Miami was going to make this difficult for everybody at one point in time. But it seemed like they had just decided, okay, they're going to let it go through, and they were fine with it. So, he didn't get it. So it makes you wonder. There was speculation about things posted on social media, possibly some whistleblowers sending stuff into the NCAA, whether it was a Miami coach or somebody down there, I have no idea. So I won't, implicate them on that. But yeah, that's about all I have on that.
I mean, we
Chris,
used to
have any other
implicate
information for us on this Darrell Jackson situation?
Yeah, there was a lot of rumors stirring around if Miami, may have took too long on some paperwork, things to that nature. And while there's like on the media side no proof of that, I do know that Miami signed off on fully accepting that he was going to transfer to Florida State, and that they were fully understanding that it was also within the conference, but they would hold nothing against the young man if he got to play in the 2023 season. Now, that's what the final paperwork may say, but I don't know that it didn't take them an extensive amount of time when it wasn't supposed to, because that was the rumors, the amount of time that it took. But I personally think that because Darrell Jackson's not the only one that had applied for this hardship waiver, not across the ACC, not across the country. There was another gentleman, wide receiver at North Carolina, that did the same thing. He transferred for a very similar situation, and he was also denied. The number that I've heard is 17 different ones were denied a waiver, a hardship waiver this season. And if you want, what I believe happened is Darrell Jackson and also the gentleman that transferred to North Carolina both transferred before they tightened these rules, before it became more of an issue. But they applied the new rules to both of them, and including the rest of them. And what I personally think happened, and I think when they reappeal it, it will be a due diligence appeal on they didn't go case by case. They just told everyone the same exact thing. They let one rule apply to everyone. And in doing so, that's where Florida State and North Carolina and a couple others could either come at this together and appeal together to the NCAA and state that they don't feel that there was due diligence done. But I don't know if NC and all of them are going to do that, seeing how they're kind of mad at us for wanting to leave the conference. But regardless if they want to go together with us or not, we can still use that term of you basically didn't do this case by case. You just told everyone the same thing based off of your new rules.
Dan Wilcox, just keep sticking it to us.
Chris, quick question. If Darrell, let's say he does get the approval, let's say he goes through this and he is able to somehow play this season, what would Florida State be getting out of him?
Well, if you look at his stats going back to when he was at Miami, he only had 3 sacks to my knowledge in the entire season. But let's be honest, when they played against Florida State, they had a lot of their players out of position, so to speak. He was covering either Benson or Toafili on a wheel route, and this man has no business trying to cover a running back anywhere, no matter what. So I think a lot of his stat missings that he had at Miami is a lot based off of what they were asking him to do at Miami. What he was getting put in position-wise wasn't working out. But everything that we've seen out of him in spring, everything that we've seen out of him in the fall camp so far, because Monday was the first day that he wasn't able to fully go because they did not approve the waiver. So he was getting to practice as if he was going to play this season. I don't want to say that he's anyone in particular, but we'll just say if he was to be in and Fabo wasn't in, we don't fall off at all. He was very disruptive on the line. Really like his second move. He's obviously one of the strongest players on the entire team. We liked the way that I think he's by 0.3 of a second coming off of the snap quicker than he was when he first got to Florida State. Now that's a little bit, in depth of statistics of how fast someone's coming off of a snap, but he has improved in every measure being at Florida State. Not only, I think the most important part of this is him being closer to his mom, because I know while he was at Miami, that was lingering in his mind because he brought it up multiple times in the media when they would talk to him about, how he felt about this game. And he said, look, to be honest with you, I'm only worried about calling and checking on my mom. That's where my mind is. So I think with him being here at Florida State, closer to his mom, he could just key focus on football. He could be that student athlete. So I think we would have seen, or we will see, a completely focused and hungry defensive tackle.
It only makes sense that you can be more at ease mentally and emotionally if you can leave your loved one, be in person with them, go to practice, go to class, do the things you need to do, and then return to them rather than having to make phone calls. And my goodness, am I reading this right? So there was a day and age in which just about every student athlete had to sit out a year that was not a grad transfer in the transfer process. And then it seemed like the NCAA got lenient to the point that if you basically proved that you were shot a dirty look in the locker room, that you could get a waiver and get transferred. And to your point, Chris, they've now tightened up. But here we have a young man, a student athlete, who has an ailing mom and would like to be close to her, and we're going to deny this transfer. I'm at a loss.
Yeah, and even in his words, when he spoke to Florida State media about the situation, he said that the worst part of this is that his mom is upset, stating that this is her fault, and he had to explain to her why it was not her fault. That everyone fully anticipated that he was going to get the waiver based off of the hardship that they were going through. Not only the coaches at Florida State, but the way that Darrell made it sound, and also the coaches at Florida State, that the NCAA kind of gave them the impression that because of the reason he was transferring, he would more than likely get the waiver approved. So they all had good feelings going into the situation, and then all of a sudden it all crashes down to a no.
Chris, quick question for you before we move on this subject. Do you think it, and I'm just throwing this as an option here, the NCAA may hide behind. Do you think it had anything to do with the fact that Florida State would have been his third team in 3 years? Do you think that had anything to do with it? Because obviously, I think we all are in agreement. I think Mark is 100% right. Your mother's sick, whatnot. You want to be closer, and he should have been approved. But with that being said, do you think that may have played a role that they're saying, okay, you're jumping from Maryland to Miami to Florida State, 3 schools in 3 years?
I mean, I would say that you definitely have to put that into consideration, whether you're on the NCAA side of it or if you're on the personal side or even the collegiate side of it as far as Florida State goes. I think that's why you put your fillers out as far as asking the NCAA, asking others that have been through the process, also looking at the percentages of approval for others that have been in similar situations. Because just the year before that, there was a gentleman that transferred to USC to play. He was also, he was a defensive back, and his name slipped in my mind, but he transferred to USC. It was the third school in 3 years, and he was approved within, I think, 3 weeks of arriving on campus. Now, his hardship was to just be closer to home. There wasn't an ill family member. He wasn't ill. There wasn't like this, dire reason that he needed to be in California. It was just that he was homesick and he wanted to be closer to home. So, but the rules when he did this last season were extremely flexible. Like everyone wasn't throwing a fit about it. And then, you got to base this off of a lot of the colleges were complaining about how lenient these rules were on these guys being able to transfer. So, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, about it with the NCAA. I mean, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. So, I mean, that's why I think you have to go at it case by case. And I'm not so sure that the NCAA did so because of how many denials they put out. And so far, I haven't heard nor found an approval. And there's many different situations of why these gentlemen transferred. So that's my only issue is that it doesn't seem they went case by case. They just put them all in a hat and said everybody's same rules. No, that's just how it feels.
And hey, I get it. 3 years, 3 different schools, but that's kind of the only reason he needed the waiver in the first place. Like, if he wasn't in that situation, he would have never needed the waiver. If he stays another year or two, he's going to be a graduate transfer. So they just like Chris said, they didn't do case by case, and it's kind of like they were trying to make a point. We're not going to take everybody anymore, but their application was already in, and instead of doing due diligence on it, they just cut them all off.
And I guess it came out today that Senator Marco Rubio was sending a letter to the NCAA trying to get them to convince them to take a separate look. I may not agree with you, Marco Rubio, on your politics, but please do what you can on this one.
For sure.
This is our Florida State football show that we present to you each and every Wednesday, 6 o'clock Eastern time. Jason has heard me say that a few 100,000 times in the past, but Jason Parker joining us this week. How about that? NBC 6.
Baseball teams do like throwback days, so I guess we're going throwback here, back to like 2019, pre-COVID. That's where we're going here with this one.
That's it. Jason, of course, going back to the Willie Taggart days. All right.
Don't blame Willie. No. Jimbo started
Jason
it.
and I had many debates on Willie Taggart at the time.
Well, he just said the Willie Taggart days, so I'm just grunting at that period of time.
All right.
We don't want to start that debate.
Jason, as you can imagine, we've had many discussions right here, and going back as far as when you were still on the show. So it's been a long time that we started talking realignment, and when those Big Ten rumors started, and we've had a myriad of discussions ever since. And of course, this is the thing that's on the minds of everyone, pretty much across college football, but especially those teams that have either an ability to leave or a potential path, or are in jeopardy of losing their status, like a couple teams on the Pac-12 West Coast. So, Jason, I'm going to let you cut loose on the realignment situation.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this for, I think we've been saying this for over a year. I think it was last summer before the 2022 season, where we were saying, hey, listen, we need to get out of the ACC. I think the writing was on the wall of seeing where the ACC was at this point. And I think it's getting closer. Reportedly it's Biden the 15th. We have to let them know whether we will be leaving for next year. I have said the Big Ten should be where our destination, and it's looking like that. I think that all indications are that Florida State will be heading to the Big Ten. I think if that happens, and once again, we don't want to put the cart before the horse on this one because it still has to officially go through, I think it would be huge for Florida State. I think you're joining a conference with a national recognition. You're talking about a conference that goes from just outside New York City now to LA. You're talking about a conference that goes from the border of Canada, and we would be the southernmost team at this point. Now, obviously, there are a few questions still to be left into play of you brought in Oregon and Washington, so that gives USC and UCLA some people out west. That's a perfect idea on that one. The question I have is, do you join with Clemson or do you join with Miami? If you're just doing it solely on football, right now, if you're saying as we're taping the show now on August 9th, 2023, if you're doing it solely on football, I understand the Clemson idea because Clemson is a bigger football brand right now. Miami has a bigger football tradition, but right now Clemson is a bigger football brand. If you are going with athletics department as a whole, if you are going with the endowment of the institution, if you're going with the academic standing of the institution, which the Big Ten seems to be bigger on, I think there's a legitimate argument that you go with Miami at this point. Now, Miami obviously did not help themselves last year by being a horrific football team going 5-7. My question to you guys, and I'll ask both Chris and George this one, is if your option right now, if you're saying, which school would you go with? If the Big Ten was to give you an option, say we're Florida State, you get to pick who's coming along for the ride. Do you go Clemson or do you go Miami?
If I had to base it off of the entirety of the university, it would be Miami. If I did it based off of football accomplishment and where I think the future of the football program is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years, it would be Clemson. But it being the Big Ten or the SEC, I think, well, really the Big Ten. So if the Big Ten looks at the situation, they've already been awarded their AAU membership, which isn't necessary to get in, but it does make you more attractive to the Big Ten. And then them having such a huge medical research deal going. And I don't know, I would pick Miami based off of what their university's accomplishments are. But I would have to lean toward Clemson if it was about recent and probably near future accomplishments as far as the football program goes. Not probably the answer you were looking for, but I think both have an argument.
Yeah, as far as the Big Ten, I think them getting us would kind of, scratch that itch for getting a team in the Florida market. I know it's not the same as the South Florida market. And like Chris said, football is just such a giant gap. It just seems like Clemson right now would be more, enticing for the Big Ten from their perspective. If I was them, I'd rather have Clemson and Florida State. Now, selfishly, I want to be kind of paired with Miami because I want to make sure that rivalry never goes away and we play them every single year. So selfishly as a fan, I'd say let them just go ahead and get Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, and Clemson, and just go that way. But I don't know if they're going to grab 4 more or not.
I guess, George, you hit the nail on the head with what I was saying here, and looking at the aspect of, let's just look at the positives of the Big Ten. The Big Ten is you're going from a conference in the ACC that is right now, let's say not this season, let's say next season, you're going to be on an ABC and ESPN contract that's going to be behind the SEC. You're going to be behind the Big 12. I would have said behind the Pac-12, but the Pac-12 is not going to exist probably by this point by next season. But you're basically going to be third on the depth chart of conferences there. And then your other option is what? The CW? Like you're literally going to be following, reruns of the Goldbergs. That's you're going to be following ACC football at that point on the CW. Versus if you're in the Big Ten, you're going to be in national TV on NBC, on CBS, on Fox. That's why right there, Mark. We had Tony was on last summer and he talked about the economics of it. I mean, the economics alone. There's a legitimate argument that could be made that Florida State could have access to research money that could make Florida State eventually one day the flagship university of the state of Florida, just with that research endowment that could come in there on that point. I guess I agree with George on this issue. My concern is if you're saying right now the Big Ten will have 20 teams, let's say 10 and 10, let's say you're doing 10 and 10, you play your 9 teams in your division, and then the argument is they're going to want us to play 2 teams from the other division every year. So that would leave 11 games. Unless the NCAA plans on expanding to a 13-game regular season or something, you would have to make a decision whether you're playing Miami or Florida at this point. And my question, I would say this to you, so I'm going to throw this here because I'm a troublemaker here. Mark knows this one. If you could only play one, Miami or Florida, who do you play?
What? It has to be Florida because of the law.
No, that's actually not true. It is actually not a law in the state of Florida. It was proposed as a law, and I always thought that too, but it is actually not a law in the state of Florida that Florida State have to play.
I thought during COVID, Ron DeSantis threw a fit about. Okay, we'll go. We'll go with
actually not. Yeah.
I mean, the longest rivalry, I guess you'd have to say Florida still. I can't stand Miami out of the 2, but I mean, I think you would stick to Florida because it's been so long. I would imagine that's who you'd stick with.
Yeah, that's tough. The way you lined out that schedule, it's like really an impossible question to ask. Like, how do you not play Florida ever? And Miami, like you said, we hate them, but I guess that's the easiest way out is to say Florida and just figure out how to get Miami on there as much as possible. But I'd like to think they can figure out that conference schedule.
Right.
If Miami did come with us, they need to just make sure they're in our division, I guess.
There is a way, and obviously working for an NBC station, we have heard some of the things. There is a possibility the Big Ten would, if it's 20, go to 4 teams with 5 in them each. So like we would be in a division with, it would be us, Clemson. Let's say Clemson would be us, Clemson, Rutgers, Maryland, and Penn State, kind of the Eastern 5 out of the group. And then basically you'd have 5, 5, 5, 5, and then you'd figure out some way where it's like you'd play your 4 teams in the division, and then you'd play 5 teams from another division, and that'd be 1 year. And then you would just rotate, so you play teams every 3 years. That would be a possibility there. But then you come into the question of who would be then what do you just take the 2 teams with the best record, have them play for the title? That wouldn't be the worst possibility in the world. My argument for Miami would be more, and I've lived all over the state of Florida, so I've seen it both. There's more Florida fans in the Orlando area, the Tampa area, the Jacksonville area, in areas where there's also a lot of Florida State fans. I feel like Miami is more valuable to us because of our tradition of recruiting this area. We've taken guys like Dalvin Cook, like Devontae Freeman, Kelvin Benjamin being from Palm Beach County, Jordan Travis being from Palm Beach County, Marvin Jones, arguably one of the best linebackers in our school's history. So to me, I feel like Miami is more valuable, and I feel like if you don't play Miami every year, you lose a little bit of that presence. You're going to have that presence in Orlando and Tampa and Jacksonville just by being more in the northern part of the state. But I just feel like you need that Miami presence.
It's a hell of a game, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
Your second scheduling model and division format with the pod system, that's the one that works. The 9 division or the 10-team divisions, it's not functional.
The other option is they've talked to them, and I guess the NCAA doesn't want, because the other option is you have two divisions and you kind of play a semifinal game and then a championship game. But the problem there is you're expanding. By that point, you're at a 14-game regular season. If your team makes the playoff, you're in the semifinal of the playoff, then your title game. All of a sudden, you're playing an NFL schedule.
Yeah, in a sport where the talk is about player safety and also players opting out of postseason games, I cannot imagine that the schedule is going to be expanded. We're going to have players sitting out of playoff games because if they're going to have to play extra games and then they're going to arrive at the playoffs and they're going to be presented with having to win 3 or 4 games to get to win a national championship. I wouldn't be surprised if we get to that point. So I don't see in any way how anything's being added to the regular season in college football. If anything, I would think it would be reduced. Obviously, those are money considerations, so that may not happen either.
And I think we'd be in the easiest division out of the group because basically what it would come down to, and all this is obviously unofficial, but it would be us, Clemson, Rutgers, Maryland, and Penn State in our division. The other division would be, it'd be Indiana, Purdue, Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State. So that you'll let those guys beat each other up a little bit. Then you would have, it'd be Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Northwestern, Illinois, and then it would be USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon, and Nebraska. So Nebraska would have to constantly travel out west for at least a couple of their division games, at least 2 of their division games. So they'd whine and complain about that one, but if they don't like it, go back to the Big 12 or go to the Mountain West.
You could play 5 divisions of 4 teams and you keep a Western division with everybody on the West Coast.
But you'd have to have a 5, so you'd have to. Nebraska's obviously the furthest west, so unfortunately they'd have to.
No, you have 5 divisions of 4 teams. And then you keep everybody out west. There's a number of ways to do it.
There's a possibility, yeah. I like mine, though. Most of it's mine. That's why I like it.
With all this realignment, I spent half my time working out division lineups and scheduling and everything. People enjoy that, so we crank out those videos all the time. So, yes, we've sliced and diced the Big Ten every which way, from 16 to 18 to 20 to 21. If Notre Dame jumps on board, then you got 3 7-team divisions.
There you go. 3 7-team divisions. I like that.
But I'll ask both George and Chris before I go. Big Ten or SEC? Which one do you guys want? Be honest. There's no wrong answer here.
Oh, you got to worry about me being. It's been Big Ten. I've been talking about it for over a year.
Yeah, same. We've talked about it at length. There's just so many reasons. ACC, SEC being tied together with ESPN. Big Ten's pretty much got, like you said, NBC, Fox. They've got the best position to put us, to take advantage of the leverage we provide. SEC's already got Florida. We're going to play all these Southern teams. We're in the South. It's just the opportunity to play Michigan, USC, Ohio State, all those teams. You can't beat it. And the money is going to be the same pretty much.
Mark, you want us to come to the Big Ten?
On to the Big Ten. Yes, that is good for the Big Ten. As I have stated many times, the Big Ten checks every box except recruiting footprint. And they need more football players within the footprint. And where do you go for football players? You go to Florida. So when you can state,
don't send them down here for our players.
Well, Ohio State's already coming down for players. So
There'll
just be more Big Ten teams coming down for players.
Ohio State lives here in Broward County, so they unfortunately know their way down here to South Florida. So
I'll definitely take some of those linemen from up there, though, for sure.
That's the trade-off. But I think Florida State in the Big Ten would be phenomenal, but they need a running mate. So whether that's Clemson or Miami, I tend to think overall it should be Miami more so than Clemson. But either way.
Mark, did you enjoy this taste? I gotta get back to work, but did you enjoy this little taste of a reunion here?
Absolutely. The only thing we need is a hot take, but you'll have to save that up for next time.
I promise you, I will come back before the regular season. I will give you a hot take.
Okay.
It's not just going to be a hot take. It's going to set your channel on fire.
I'm a tough grader because I've rated many of your hot takes lukewarm.
Sizzling.
Okay. All right.
Like the fajitas at Chili's. Sizzling.
Okay. Just don't get me into a wager on any of these hot takes. You know how that results.
George, Chris, good to meet you guys. Mark, we'll see you later.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate you being here. Jason Parker, NBC6. There we go. Florida State Seminoles live here. Voice of College Football every Wednesday, 6 o'clock Eastern Time. Catch George on Renegade Report. George, best way for people to find you, just put in Renegade Report right on the YouTube search bar, right?
Yes, sir. The Renegade Report on YouTube. And then if you're familiar with Substack, that's what the site's on, just renegadereport.substack.com.
Did I mess up your Twitter handle? Is that correct?
Renegade Report 1. Oh, that's all. Just add a 1 and you're there.
I need a 1.
Yes, sir.
That. We'll get that fixed. Renegade Report 1 on Twitter. Chris, Spear Addicts, Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern Time, correct?
That is correct. Just got done speaking to Mr. Satterfield at Florida State. It looks like we're going to get to have Adam Fuller on Thursday. I haven't got confirmation from Coach Fuller yet, but it may be the following Monday because they're going to be in Jacksonville tomorrow. So I'm more or less pushing for Monday of next week.
Nice.
That will be a fun
Adam Fuller.
conversation.
Yes.
Sure.
That can't be missed, folks. Anytime you can go directly to coaches on the coaching staff, top 10 football team, there you go. Which leads us to the coaches poll came out, I believe, on Tuesday with a number off the top of my head, number 8 ranking for Florida State. Florida State at 8, Clemson at 9. I'll go grab the poll and bring it up. Did you guys have any reactions to the first poll?
Well, a lot of Florida State fans were asking how come LSU was ranked ahead of us when we beat LSU, and I understand why people question it because we did beat them head to head, but you have to pay attention to where Florida State had that 3 straight game losing streak against ranked opponents, and LSU did not. Yes, it's true LSU lost to us, but LSU, when they played against ranked opponents like the Alabamas, Tennessee, and whomever else, they won the games that were necessary to put them at a higher ranking this year than us. But here's the thing. I don't care if they're 2 or 3 or whatever ahead of us. We play them first of the year. I mean, the first game of the year. Beat them, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're ranked ahead of you or not. These are just projections, which all rankings usually are. But these aren't the ones that matter yet. I think that, to be honest with you, through the coaches that did this and whoever ranked it, I actually think they got it relatively 100% on the dot. I mean, I don't have many complaints other than I don't know if Texas A&M deserves to be in the top 25 as of right now. They do have a lot of talent. They did win some games, but I don't know that they deserve to be in the top 25 over, I don't know, South Carolina maybe. I think South Carolina deserved to probably be in the top 25 over Texas A&M this year, but that's just my opinion.
George, before you go, I'll go on my little rant about preseason polls. And it's not like I've never released one either. They're fun. People are interested. It spurs on debate, so it's a good thing to do. But to Chris's point, it doesn't matter. And especially it doesn't matter when you're facing the number 5 team in the country in game number 1 and you're the number 8 team in the country. That's going to take care of itself.
Absolutely.
But it's not going to take care of itself if 3 weeks later you're losing to whoever, NC State. So got to win the football games. Florida State's in a great position. Number 8, number 11, number 6, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The point I'll make, and I'm going to play devil's advocate somewhat to Chris's statement about who deserves to be in the top 25. To me, nobody deserves to be in the top 25 because nobody's done anything. So nobody deserves it or doesn't deserve it. I think it's completely arbitrary at this point, because if you talk to the people that actually do this, meaning not necessarily the coaches for the coaches poll, sometimes it's their sports information director who's filling the thing out, or it's the coach giving instructions on just the couple teams that they care about. Rank us 1 and rank our rival 10 and so 15, and make sure you don't rank them, and that's that. Do the rest, whatever you want.
What drives me nuts is they look at this. I mean, 6-7 weeks into the season, this poll, and the AP is still like a big determining factor. Is what really hurt us last year, if you remember. It took us a long time. You know, we eventually lost the 3 games and got reset. But even before then, it was like, well, y'all started the year unranked. So I feel like, and we actually had a caller call in upset at where we were, being below LSU, yada, yada. And I was like, same thing you said, we play them first week. Just as long as you're up there like we are in the top 10, we're good. We're within striking distance that we don't have to claw our way to getting ranked and then claw into the teams and then claw into the – we're right there. We beat LSU week 1. We're good to go. But unfortunately, Mark, I agree with you 100%. You know, so you have so many people leave, so many people come in, transfers. It's so hard to know what these teams are. But unfortunately, they really care about this, and it lasts for months into the season, unfortunately.
And also consider this, that if you would ask individual voters, so we'll forget the coaches poll because I saw Chris nodding. He knows the deal. Again, a lot of, you could probably find a lot of group of 5 coaches that actually run it through and do it. And every coach has a different slant, but many it's the sports information directors filling out the list. Ask AP voters what their approach is to a preseason poll. Some of them simply say, as I would, this is my approach anytime I do a top 25 outside the season, of course, when there are no results. I just rank what I believe are the 25 best teams in the country in order. I don't look at a schedule. I don't care what the schedule is because I'm ranking the 25 best teams. Now, some of these people, they look at a schedule and they may think Florida State's the 13th best team in the country, but they think they've got an easy schedule, so they rank them number 8, or that they're the 5th best team in this country, but they've got a tough schedule, so they're going to knock them down to 8, and they're trying to make a prediction is what many of them do. And also keep this in mind, people. I'll throw this out for you two to guess. Out of the top 25 preseason, the AP top 25, which is almost exactly the same as the coaches poll, the top 25 preseason last year, out of those 25, how many do you think finished ranked?
Ooh.
7?
Yeah, I was going to go 9.
Oh, you think only 9 out of 25 finished ranked?
Well, the way you said it, I mean, I know that there's 7 or 8 teams that are going to be ranked no matter what.
Those are some bad rankings.
I don't have faith in it at all, Mark, and that's why it's so infuriating that it stays and it lingers for so long into the year.
Most people say like 17 or 18 when I ask them that question, because you would think that you should be able to get most of them.
For sure.
12 finished ranked out of 25. 13 did not. Now, usually they only miss about 8 or 9, but still, 8 or 9 out of 25 are not going to finish in the top 25, and usually about 3 to 4 in the top 10 will not finish in the top 10. You look at this top 10 and you think it's tough to find teams that you don't think will finish in the top 10, but history says it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
The weatherman still gets a paycheck, and he's about the same.
Right.
Yeah, I just found out that 50% doesn't mean you have a 50% chance of raining. It means you're raining on 50% of the area. So there you go on that. Meteorologists, they've got it made in the shade. A lot of them from Florida State too.
The other thing, if you know anything about the jobs of these sports writers, is, and all credit to them, they're doing their job. But if you are a sports writer at the Clarion Ledger in Jackson, Mississippi, and you're assigned to Ole Miss football, you live and breathe and die Ole Miss. That's all you're doing all the time is covering Ole Miss football. I remember I used to rub shoulders with these guys every day for 7 years when I was a sports director at a CBS station. And that's what they do. They don't know. They have no idea who most of the starting quarterbacks or the personnel are for these teams. They regurgitate what they've been hearing all off season is what they do.
Yeah, that's the most infuriating part of it. You know, perception is reality, and it's like, who gets to decide? Luckily, more and more, you know, I call it the new era media, you know, guys like you and people with their own platforms getting bigger and bigger. It's like it's getting a little bit closer, it seems like to me, the kind of narratives out there. But like you said, it's people are looking out for number one, especially when it's your sports, you know, your SID or your coach that's putting these reports in for these polls. Was it Kirby Smart that had us ranked like 19th or something at the end of the year, or didn't even have us in the poll, like some ridiculous thing because we're recruiting Georgia so heavy? It's like, come on.
If you want to find out how much sports media, and I'm not talking about the size shows that we have. I'm not talking about the No Game Day, the Spear Addicts, the Mark Rogers, the Renegade Report. I'm talking about Fox. I'm talking about ESPN. I'm talking about all the big ones. If you want to find out how much they really don't know, go watch the new Johnny Manziel documentary, and you'll find out exactly what it is that they don't know, because it shows you how Johnny Manziel and his partner controlled the media like it was their first job. Like all they had to do was wake up and say, this is what's happening. And then everyone reported it that way. And that's it. To me, it's hilarious because you think that they have all these resources. They have all of there's only one Adam Shaver, I think is how his name's pronounced in the NFL, that knows when people are, you know, getting traded or whatever. He's the only one that I personally think has real legitimate resources, because all the other ones, they are just reporting based off of what 900 other people said, and they give an opinion on it. You're excited to watch ESPN to hear someone else's opinion, which 90% of anything that's being talked about is an opinion. But at least when you go to these smaller outlets like us and some others that cover other teams, you're actually talking to people that actually talk to, whether it be the athletic director, because we have the time to. Our whole job is subsidized down to a smaller box of we only want to cover these people, but to the best of our ability. So we actually get to talk to all of these people, and we can actually give you correct information. To whereas if it makes national, they're just going based off of what the other 850 other people said.
I was in control rooms at ESPN for 15 years, every day for 15 years. And not that there aren't extremely intelligent people, hardworking people doing a great job, the people on air. Yeah, a lot of them don't know what they're talking about. And you need to realize that when they have all the answers and all the stats, you have to realize that there is a producer in their ear all the time. And if Jordan Travis just threw the game-winning touchdown pass against Florida, and then he's on Sports Center right after, that producer's going, Jordan Travis, 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions this season. So the anchor can go, Jordan, you've just completed an amazing season, 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. They don't know. They sometimes have to pronounce the name of the player to say, this is the pronunciation on the player, in their ear.
Yep.
Yeah. There's no doubt. It's like once you get to a certain level, it's like, my goodness, you were watching Stephen A. Smith. I think he went on one time for like 20 minutes about a guy who was injured for the whole year. He wasn't even playing ball.
I do remember that. I was at ESPN, and, you know, all hell broke loose, and there were all sorts of things coming down because, yeah, there was an NFL game that night, and he went on and on about players that had been out the whole season. And
that was pretty funny.
You know, nobody can know the NBA and the NFL and boxing and all this stuff and know it well. It's just not happening.
It's what I don't want to ruin the name, but the Japanese guy, Matt's. I'm not going to mess it up, but that's basically what he says. Like, whatever you're going to do something, like, work hard, do something that's difficult, but it's got to be specialized, you know, like master something and then move on to the next thing. There's no way you can have a hand in a million different fires and be proficient at it. Like you said, be able to, you know which player played each game from 3 different leagues. You just can't do it.
Absolutely. We certainly don't want to bypass, even though the news cycle is so fast. When something happened a day ago, it seems like it was like 5 months ago. But when we're talking about the level athlete of a KJ Bolden, Chris, wow. Big pickup over the weekend, 6'1", 185, Buford, Georgia. Pulled right out of under the nose of Kirby Smart, one of the top-rated players in all of high school football, number 1 rated safety.
Yeah, Tallahassee's absolutely ecstatic about landing KJ. What he brings as far as his talents is one thing, but the best part of KJ is he's going to be one of those guys there's not many athletes out there that are college ready from day one. And this young man, you would argue, could step on the field tomorrow and compete with some of the best that are across the country. And I do agree, he might need to stay exactly where he is in size, because a lot of people are saying, does he need to be bigger? And I personally don't think that he has to be much bigger at all. But what KJ brings to the table is going to be extremely special for Florida State. It's about time that we go after our next Derwin James. I know that's a big name. I know that's a set of shoes to fill, and that, not happened yet. But KJ is that caliber of player. He's just that good already. Statistically, I think he actually outmatches Derwin a little bit. But the facts of the matter is to land a 5-star like KJ Bolden when everyone had anticipated and pretty much put their money down that he was going to the University of Georgia for reasons that are understandable. For Florida State to get in there and land him is absolutely, they're on fire. The way that they're recruiting right now, I can't sit here and compare and say that anyone else is doing better than Florida State. I understand that they're 5th right now in the recruiting rankings because of Rodarius Morgan flipping to Alabama. But he was also a safety, and you just brought in KJ Bolden, the best safety in the country. So you kind of anticipate a little bit of attrition when you gain something of that caliber.
No doubt. We're just talking about it. Perception is reality. Me and Chris, we can tell you like every move that's happened the past 3 months in the KJ Bolden recruitment, leaning Georgia, leaning Florida State, going back and forth, certain things that happened behind the scenes that ended up sealing the deal. But as far as the rest of the country is concerned and all these other kids in the 25 and 26 class, Florida State just landed 2 5-stars, back to back. That's all there is to it. And that's what, as much as you'd like to think, the merits of everything that's going on in the department, et cetera, it's like, no, like we landed 2 5-stars back to back. And that's going to let 2 more 5-stars possibly do it in September, so it's just a steady trajectory up. So high school recruiting, Mike Norvell has just made an amazing comeback after all the crap that was talked in June, to see where we are a month later.
Yeah, it's amazing to see number 5 ranked recruiting class according to 247 Sports, 21 commits, 3 5-stars, 12 4-stars, and a strong 91.5 ranking, and right up there with the likes of Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama. There it is. Wow. And, people were concerned about Mike Norvell's ability to recruit. Well, he just had to coach up one team, show that he could win 10 games. And he obviously took that recruiting skill to the transfer portal first and foremost, but now he's doing it the high school route as well. It's impressive.
And I would also say that he's made some, especially this last hire, he's just made some really good hires. You hired Pat Surtain, who has the resume of his pedigree is just absolutely amazing. And I think that's the reason why you landed those 2 DBs at 5-star, other than Coach Norvell being who he is. And then you hire a student assistant coach in 2013 national title winner, Nick O'Leary. Like, those are the types of hires that you got to make to really put the elite status in to measure, because of you've got Pat Surtain, who has succeeded at the most elite level as a player, who has also done so at getting his son into the NFL, who has also done at the high school level of winning championships at American Heritage. Then he turns around and is about to do something probably really special, moving up the poll ranks of the Miami Dolphins. Luckily, Florida State calls him and gets him to Florida State as the DB coach. And now he's going to climb the rankings here, and he's going to achieve at the highest level. Everybody says that it's not always promised that someone's going to continue on a measure of greatness. But when they don't know any other way, when they don't know how to become any better, or they don't know how to work at an average level, they can only give you greatness. So I think that that's what you get out of Pat Surtain. And then you go and hire Nick O'Leary, who 2013 goes and wins a national title, probably played harder than anybody on that team if you go watch him. He definitely practiced to the level of eliteness, definitely made plays at an elite level. And I know I'm throwing the word elite around, but that's what those two guys are to me. And their expectations to these young men are going to be nothing but elite. So when everyone's performing at the level that they're supposed to, that's what creates champions, and therefore what brings championships to whomever it is that they're coaching for. So the last few hires from Coach Norvell have been just home run hits, grand slams, so to speak. And I'm extremely excited for the future because I know it's going to happen one day. And Antonio Cromartie is going to be hired at Florida State. I just got that feeling in my bones, and I know some people may not like it, but I'm going to absolutely fall in love with it.
There's no doubt. And you talk about Patrick Surtain, senior, man. I mean, he is setting up to possibly be that Alex Atkins on the defense. So maybe Antonio Cromartie takes over the DBs when he gets bumped up. Maybe Adam Fuller gets a head coaching job a couple years down the road. Who knows? I'd love it.
Patrick Surtain, 11 years in the NFL. Just had to look up the stats because, man, I remember a lot of Sundays watching him. He was first rate. He was a tremendous player. 37 career interceptions in the NFL. Nick O'Leary was in the NFL for 5 seasons as well. So they've achieved at the highest level. They've achieved a championship level, of course, Nick O'Leary in particular at Florida State. And those are the kind of people you want to stick around the program. And, they've proven it themselves, so they know what it takes. They have the knowledge, they have the ability, and then on top of that, they have that Knoll blood running through their veins, so they have extra incentive rather than going to work for somebody else. Not that they wouldn't do their best, but they have that extra incentive in a Nick O'Leary, at least in his case, to teach and develop these young men to win football games.
And that 5-year career he carved out was, pure grit. He made it through with hard work and just being that dude. So I was surprised. I got surprised when they hired him, but it's really awesome for the program. And he's no nonsense. So I'm sure he'll make a good coach. He's absolutely no nonsense. Big dip and a scowl on his face. I'd hate to be the one that's like taking that pad or that ball ripped from him. It's not the normal drill when he's running it.
Mm-mm.
Falconer TRX, thank you so much for the contribution there. Seems like NCAA did not like leaving the ACC talk.
Yeah, that did come pretty quick after all the realignment rumors. They can't say anything, but just going by all the tweets and all of a sudden the ACC network is wall to wall FSU content. They're definitely they're putting out their little microaggressions out there saying, look, we've done everything right by you guys. I don't understand why you aren't happy.
I have found my fan of the day. Voice of College Football is a troll. He does not support FSU and undermines our program as much as he can. Just a fact. All right.
I think that everybody needs to kind of realize that Mark has to stay as non-biased and neutral as possible to run this type of show. That's why he brings on us that are 100% indebted to Florida State, love the university more, if not more than the people that are currently at it. So you have to be non-biased to do what Mark's doing with the multiple shows. The funny one is right underneath that, I heard the Voice of College Football as a Michigan fan. You are so far off. That's bad.
People aren't too much of a fan of nuance these days. Nuance isn't like a good thing. They just want to hear you say, go Florida State, Mark, one time. Give us a tomahawk chop.
How's that?
There you go. There you go, guys. See, look.
I do my very best to be unbiased and to cut it straight and to just spit facts. And I hope you guys will call me on it if you think I'm being unfair at any point.
Oh, I'd call you on it if I thought you were being unfair. Me and James Coleman have talked about this multiple times. Sometimes we kind of wonder if people think that you're a Florida State fan. I know that that's not what was just written, but I was like, I wonder if sometimes people think that he's actually a Florida State fan because of not just being fair, but the way. But I think we get people excited about Florida State football. Hell, I got a Gator fan the other day excited about Florida State football, and he was like, I had to quit listening to you because I actually started thinking good things or good thoughts about Florida State, and that's not supposed to happen. But being around that energy, especially when we get excited about what Florida State's doing and, just being the purest of fans that we can be, I thought people might question if you were a Florida State fan. I don't know what gets people on a tangent of thinking that someone's trying to put a team down. Like, I get where ESPN comes from. I think ESPN 100% hates Florida State and Miami. I really believe that. I don't think there's any way around it. I think that they treat them pretty unfair all the way across the board. But I've never seen Mark treat Florida State unfairly or nor anyone else. And even the team that he would hate the most, which that's why the thing's funny, that he doesn't treat them unfair either. So I just disagree with the comment, but people are open to have their own opinion.
I've taken polls, and we probably have more fans from that team that wears maize and blue on our main channel, on our national channel, than any other fan base. I get more support from that fan base.
It's wild.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of energy if you really just were out to get FSU to spend so much time producing and and doing FSU content, talking with FSU people.
Yeah.
They'll get over it.
I love college
Easy.
football, and I try to slice it. Nobody's perfect, and we're all biased. I don't even admit or claim to be unbiased. I think if you're flesh and blood, it's impossible to be unbiased, completely unbiased. I just say I do my very damnedest to filter that out as much as I possibly can.
Mark, you've got Maverick down there is talking about FSU recruits, or a FSU recruit is saying FSU drops deposits into his account every few weeks. There is a video that an Alabama guy put out. He's an Alabama fan, first and foremost. Obviously, he won't say who the recruit was unless the deposit into this person's bank account says Florida State University on it. I don't know how you can decipher who's depositing money into his account, so to speak. All of this is hearsay because he can't share or won't share the recruit. He won't share any real information. It's just a bunch of hypothetical talk or accusations, really. And I think it's just something that is doing exactly what he designed it to do, is get a ton of views, and it's doing it. And it was easy to use Florida State because they started landing 5 stars one right after the other. So it was easy to put out, well, Florida State must be cheating because this is what they're doing. Well, let's be honest, everyone. There isn't a university in the Power 5 that's not paying some kid somewhere something to try to get them to come to their school. I'm not going to say that the man's fully lying to you. I'm just going to say that's hearsay. Like, there's no truth to it because there can't be. If he really wanted to out whom it was and all of that, he would have. He doesn't want to because he probably can't. Any real reporter gets definite information about something like that, they're going to drop the information there because they want to make a name for themselves. You know how much more money he would make if he actually proved or put that out there? You know how much money that man would make? He'd make a lot because he would be very sourceful, and every video that man ever put out again, people would listen to it and watch it just because of what he was able to accomplish in that one moment.
look, he's a funny guy. He's a smart guy. He's got a great little, subscription base. But here's the thing. He probably could have a story for every single team in the FBS, that go down to whatever level football. The only reason he's talking about Florida State and brought out that story, like he even said in the video that he's been sitting on it for months, is because Florida State nabbed 2 5-stars and they're just in the media right now. That's all there is to it.
Yep. Falconer TRX, thank you so much for your contribution. 100% agree. ESPN hates FSU and Miami. We are out of time, folks. We want to encourage you to check out the Renegade Report right here on YouTube with George. And, of course, Chris Frazier does an outstanding job at Spear Addicts. It's right here on YouTube as well. Spear Addicts and the Thursday night shows at 7:30 Eastern. So get over there. And, guys, we appreciate you making this happen because without you, we don't have a show here every Wednesday night. So, guys, have a great rest of your week. And we will see you next Wednesday, everyone.
Go Noles.
Go Noles, baby.